Hello everyone, welcome back to the another session in Principles of Programming Languages. Today we'll be going to talk about the last topic of second unit, which is about control structures and guarded commands. So this guarded commands is important question as far as your external examination or else end examinations are considered. So this question is frequently asked question. Now, so coming to the control structures, this video will be going to cover about selection statements and what are selection statements, iterative statements, unconditional branching, guarded commands. So this video will be going to cover about these four different kind of statements. Right, now let's get started. So control structure is what? A control structure is control statement and the collection of statements whose execution it controls. And we have only one design issue, which is should the control structure have multiple entries in the program or not. Now we'll see about how that control will be given to the program through a control structure. So there are particular statements which are selection statements and unconditional statements, conditional statements. Let's learn about the same. A selection statement provides the means of choosing between two or more execution paths in a program. Generally, selection statements are two categories, two-way and n-way, or else multiple sections. So we'll see about two-way selection. Two-way selection is what? Two-way selection statements of contemporary imperative languages are quite similar. Example, if control expression then class, else class. Now here in the program will not execute sequentially. The program is controlled by the if class. Whatever condition I am writing over here, so this is the condition which makes your program to run according to this condition. If I write a condition which is a equal to 0, or else if I write a condition a less than b, if this condition is true, the particular block will get executed. If this condition fails, then the other block will get executed. Right? So here we will be going to control the program based upon the statement, one control statement. So basically there are some design issues like what is the form and type of expression that controls the selection. So basically here what kind of expressions we'll write? Naturally we'll write here Boolean expressions. And how are then or else classes specified? If you wanted to use only single condition, we'll write if class. If you wanted to take a decision among two choices, we'll write if else block. If you wanted to take choice of 3, then we write if, else if and else. If you wanted to take more, then we'll use more else if. That is what we used to say, else if ladder. Right? So all these statements will give you selecting which and which block. So that's what this comes under selection statements. And Python basically uses, now that's what the command what we were shown you. So if control expression then class, else class may not be used as the same way in other programming languages. Let's say example Python takes indentation as to specify a compound statement, that it will write something like this: if x greater than y colon x is equal to y, indentation, print, and some print statement will keep. So now this print will comes under if statement. If you put this print under if indentation, if you follow indentation, then this print will be out of the if. So something like this Python will follow. And we also have nesting selectors. Nesting selectors in the sense we'll use something like this: if sum double equal to 0 and if count double equal to 0, then we'll write a statement which is some result equal to 0. and else result equal to 1. Now here in this, why the reason I am calling this statement as nesting selectors? Because one selection statement is available in the other selection statement. If a statement is available in the other selection statement, then that are called as nesting selection statements, or else you can say simply those are nesting selectors. Now we'll talk about the multiple selection statements. So when I remind you about multiple selection statement, the multiple selection statement allows the selection of one of any number of statements. So you can recall the concepts in the previous programming languages, which is switch, or else you can also take else if ladder. So both are multiple selection statements. If I write some switch statement, expression, and some cases if I write. Now all these cases are what? It's are multiple selections. I can, according to the input, I can select this or this or this. I'll be having list of chances. So this concept will comes under multiple selection statements, right? Now, so we'll be talking about the next thing, which is iterative statement. Iterative statement, basically it's also called with the name of a loop. And statement is one that causes a statement or collection of statements to be executed 0 times or 1 time or more times. A task which will get repeated for more times is called as a loop. Now, so we have some examples. And before we see an example, let's understand design issues. How the iteration is controlled. Basically, we cannot repeat some task. Now, if I write here printf for single time, then only single time it will get displayed. But what is iterative statement? A statement can be iteratively, or a statement can be repeatedly happened in the program. How it can be happened in the program? So I have to make this is repetition task by having some variables help, or else by having some metrics. That are what? Writing the loop variable and writing the loop variable and writing the initial size of the loop variable, and I'm writing the step size, how many times that loop variable should iterate to print this value. So that we'll use, correct? Now, we also have some kind of statements which are comes under iterative statements. Concerned to the all the programming languages, we'll use for loop. Specific to the languages, we'll use while loop and do while loop. Most of the programming languages will use while for loop, and while also few languages will use, but do while is oftentimes we'll see in the programming languages. So let's see about some structure, how ADA will use, how other programming languages will use. Now let's take the example of ADA. ADA is a programming language which uses for statement in the program as an iterative statement. That is, for variable in, we'll write here step size, and we'll write some discrete range loop. Now we'll write some block of if and we'll end this one. So this is what kind of notation which uses in ADA language. And we know how to write in C language or C based languages. That we'll write for expression 1 semicolon, expression 2 semicolon, expression 3. Now this expression 1 is what? Initial value of your loop variable. This expression 2 is what? Condition to check whether it is true to execute or false to come out of the loop. Expression 3 is what? Updating the value, or else you can say it is step size. So this is about iterative statement. And the iterative statement, basically it is different from language to language, as I have specified. Right now, so basically iterative statements are two kinds: counter controlled loops and logic based loops. Counter controlled loops is what? It uses a counter variable, but such variables do not exist in pure functional languages. So let's take the example of F sharp. Now in F sharp, we'll use for loop in this way. Let REC for loop body. Now if you see this one, for loop is being used in F sharp by taking some kind of keywords. These are what? Counter controlled loops. We'll use counter controlled loops in imperative languages, use a counter variable But such variables do not exist in pure functional languages. Rather than iteration to control repetition, functional languages use recursion. So rather than statement, functional language use the recursive function. So this is what about counter controlled loops. In logic controlled loops, we'll write the logic. Should the control to be pre-test or post-test. So that's what we will be using while and do while. So while is what entry controlled loop, do while is what exit controlled loop. And so the next is about unconditional branching. So unconditional branching in the sense an unconditional branch statement transfers execution control to a specified location. That means we'll use a keyword which is go to, or else as far as C based languages are concerned, we'll use unconditional branching which are go to, continue, break. These are what, right? So most preferably go to is the common unconditional branching concerned to major languages. But here we have to keep in mind one point, which is all the languages will not support unconditional branching. So now we'll see about the languages which will not have, and that's what I'm putting cross mark. Java will not have go to statement, and Python also will not use any go to, and Ruby also it will not use. So we know that relatively all C based languages will use go to statement frequently, so that to jump from one line to the other line, wherever label is specified, you can execute that particular block. That's what it is, unconditional. We don't write any condition, we just specify the label. That we write go to some L1. So L1 will be writing some printf hi. Now, so we are not having any condition. Though you are not writing any condition, control will transfer from this line to this line. So that's what it is called as unconditional branching. And next about guarded commands. And this is what important questions, short questions. 2 mark questions for your external theory. So guarded commands are what? The small blocks are used to separate the guarded classes, guarded class. So the mean of this is what? We'll use a separate class to guard something. So which we are guarding actually? We are writing some Boolean expression, right? Now I'll show you an example. So what is this guarded, and how I can recognize it's a guarded command. Now let's see some example. If I am writing some if condition, what this if block is going to consist? Here we are writing some Boolean expression, right? So this Boolean expression will get guarded by many kind of operators. As far as ALGOL 68 is considered, we'll use angular brackets as guarded commands. We'll guard this command with this symbol, and we'll use parentheses if you consider C based languages, and we'll use square brackets if you consider the other programming languages. So guarded commands are what? The small blocks are used to separate the guarded class and allow the classes to be statement sequences. So each line in the selection statement consisting of a Boolean expression. Now Boolean expression is what? Guard, and it is a guard which is commanded by these kind of symbols. So guarded commands are what? The commands which we are writing in between of these kind of symbols. So you can take any Boolean expressions in the consideration, what we were seeing in the earlier examples. So this is about the last topic of second unit. With this we finished about second unit. Thank you all.